Here at Heart of Glass, the podcast, it's our responsibility to make sure that this is the safest listening experience and watching experience for everyone involved. That being said, today's episode talks a lot throughout the entire episode about drug usage. So if that's something that you're sensitive to, we would recommend skipping to the next episode. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a great listening and watching experience. Welcome back to the Heart of Glass podcast, the show that takes a deeper, more intimate look at the awesome people who make up the heartbeat of the Glass City. My name is Ashley Cohn, and I'm your host, and I'm so excited to be back here in Toledo Spirits again filming. They have been our amazing sponsor this season, and if you haven't had a chance to try their Heart of Glass vodka, which is a big part of our partnership, make sure to check it out. It's incredibly smooth. They use real strawberries in it, and it's delicious. If that's not your jam, they have a wide variety of other excellent spirits to check out, and the vibe here is incredible, so you should definitely come check it out in person at some point. Today's guest was born and raised here in Toledo. She's a musician, an entrepreneur, and social influencer in the music space. Her life's mission is to provide the youth of Toledo with more job opportunities in creative realms. And everything that she does is centered around the creative revitalization of our city and its residents. She's definitely one of the most driven people that I've ever met, and I'm excited for all of you to soak up her inspiration along with me. So Glass City humans, I give you Abby Sarabia.
Hello.
Abby, thank you for being here.
Yes, of course. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so stoked that you're here too. I know when we initially got to sit down for the first time, I was just so excited about your energy and your excitement for what we're doing.
Yes.
And your passion for what you're doing and the mission that you're trying to accomplish. So I am so excited for our greater Toledo community to get to know you better, because you're a person that I think some people don't know that really should know you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And especially considering what you're doing for the creative community specifically, and musicians and emerging musicians. I'm really excited later on in our interview to really get into the nitty-gritty of what you're doing, because I know I have some friends personally in our music community that will be very happy that they've been able to make a connection with you and get to know you better.
Yes.
You ready to do this?
Yes, I am.
Let's
I'm so
dive
excited.
into it. All right. So from what you said in your story, it sounds like the beginning years of your life were extremely tumultuous, and you were very candid about that.
Yeah.
You began your story by stating that you were born into a life of chaos, and that's a pretty strong statement to come right out of the gate with what your younger life was like. So can you elaborate on what that life of chaos was that you came into?
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, I would like to preface this by saying, unfortunately, that my story is not unique. I feel like I'm actually one of the lucky ones that share my story, which is a huge motivation as to why I continue to push for our youth so hard. But growing up, my parents were drug dealers, and my father specifically had a major addiction to cocaine. So my life was only as stable as the drug income. And I think anybody who has experience with addiction or people that they love who are addicts, you really understand what that dark word entails. Right? Addiction is so traumatizing. It's so emotional. It's so never ending in a sense. And so dealing with that at a young age really allowed me to build a resilient mindset, I think. I love my parents. My family are amazing. We all have great relationships now. But being born and that kind of chaos was definitely tough. And yeah, I'll leave it there.
Is that it was tough?
Yeah, very tough.
You know, I don't think anyone wants to have to be resilient.
Right.
I think sometimes resiliency gets glorified a little bit.
Absolutely.
In that it's something that you absolutely want to be. But I think what a lot of people don't understand is you become resilient by facing extreme adversity. And so if you can let that extreme adversity then make you a resilient person, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that you were able to take what was a very obviously negative experience growing up, and help that fortify you and turn you into a resilient person, which obviously later on in life has helped to further what you're wanting to do.
Very well said, very well said. I couldn't have said it better myself, because you are absolutely right. Resilience comes as a product of adversity, and adversity always comes as a product of trauma.
Trauma clubbing night, you know what I mean, right?
So I agree with you. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I also appreciate that you recognize the ripple effect that your childhood had on the rest of your life in general. I can already tell just by the pieces that you were putting together about your own life that you're a very introspective, self-aware person. And you understand that where we start doesn't determine where we end up, but it does have an influence on it.
100%.
So I know that your experience has made you a stronger and more resilient individual. I'm also grateful that you're willing to discuss your mental health, because we have a big focus on that here, because it's really important for all of us to focus on our mental health so that we can be the best that we can be for ourselves and for others. So you believe that your experience in childhood is a huge part of your bipolar 1 diagnosis?
Yes, bipolar 2.
Bipolar 2,
yes,
I apologize.
No, you're okay.
So I get what you're saying. Can you elaborate though? Because I think some people don't realize that part of some of these mental disorders actually almost have like a button to them to trigger them. And if you experience a lot of trauma in your youth, that can actually work to trigger those things.
100%.
So can you elaborate a little more on why you do feel like your childhood definitely influenced that? And can you also kind of explain for our listeners and watchers how the two correlate, your life experience and also receiving that diagnosis later on?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, so just a quick overview of what bipolar 2 disorder is it is a personality disorder where I have essentially peaks and valleys of moods, peaks being hypomania and valleys being very severe depression. And peaks typically last about a few days, like 5 days to 7 days, and depressive episodes last anywhere from 2 weeks to 1 month. And so growing up, I think it's also important to say too, before I get into that, is that bipolar 2 is agenetic, but also too environmental. So I think growing up in an environment that had a lot of emotional turmoil, I've seen the deepest depths of anger, right? Of sadness, of depression, of all of these extreme emotions that I feel kind of set up my mood spectrum for myself as an adult, if that makes sense. So essentially, if I never seen complete chaos, I wouldn't really know what that looks like. So I wouldn't be able to tap into that necessarily, right? And I think seeing all of those very mature, very intense emotions at a young age all throughout my childhood set up my emotional spectrum very wide. And so now that it has affected my adult life, what that kind of looks like is, for me, is my depression. My depression can get really, really low. I can get very dark. And I think that again, it's genetic, but I also think that because I was so apt to that when I was younger, that's a place that I can easily tap into, that I have to be conscientious of.
I understand that. My sister actually likes to affectionately call that headspace leaning toward melancholy, that some people just generally lean toward melancholy. And I do think some people do tend to just, honestly, their natural state is a little bit lower, and it does take more to pull yourself up.
Absolutely. And I mean, on the end of that spectrum too, with a childhood that I had, it was very dependent on money and drugs, right? So you have money and drugs, life is great. I mean, as a kid, I shouldn't say great, because you're still seeing violence and you're still seeing all these things, but as a kid you don't really know the difference if that's your normal. But when you have all of those things and you have a affluent life, so to speak, on the other end of that spectrum, my hypomania, that's sometimes what I feel like I kind of chase, right? Is like having everything, being really secure, feeling good, not worried about a paycheck or how I'm going to do this or that. And Yeah, I think those two end of the spectrums is where I find myself tapping into at least. When I get there, I kind of know it's hard to identify when you're in a peak or valley or anything like that because it's a mood, right? So sometimes I really feel like, no, I feel really good today.
Yeah.
Like, no, I can really just knock out 13 hours of productivity and do stuff like that and not kind of realizing, all right, maybe I'm on the verge of a peak. But when I am able to identify those moods that I felt when I was younger, that is how I reel myself back in, and at that point usually do like a mental check-in.
When did you get diagnosed?
I got diagnosed last year, and it's almost coming up on my anniversary of diagnosed.
Wow.
Yeah, in September, I believe.
Do you feel like having the actual diagnosis has helped you feel a little bit more sense of peace from the fact that you have a label to put on it,
100%.
which then gives you the tools to be able to explore how to best help yourself?
1,000,000%. Yes. The day that my therapist suggested that she may think that I fall under this diagnosis, I went home and I looked it up and I was just like, yes. It really helped me identify what was going on inside, because this is why I love mental health so much, because I think when you don't know what's going on inside, you only blame yourself. And
That's
that is
true.
a really dark place to be, right? Why can't I get motivated? Like, why can't I do these things?
Like there's just something inherently wrong with who you are as a person.
Exactly. And then you're trying to fix that.
Yeah.
And that's not the issue at all. And so when I was able to label the diagnosis and learn more about it and see that I'm not unique in terms of something that's wrong with me, or I don't have to go on this whole journey of finding myself or whatever it is that I thought I was lacking, it made my life a lot easier. And it also made my life a lot harder for the following 3 months.
Bet.
Because then I always felt like something was wrong with me. I always felt like there were times that I couldn't align with the actions I was doing or the words that I was saying. And again, I went on this whole journey of trying to find myself, but when I was able to learn about those things, I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
That's all right.
What was I saying?
You were just talking about having the knowledge of the diagnosis and having the power that goes along with that, and being able to say, this isn't just all my fault because I'm not just an inherently a bad person.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I guess long story short, finding that diagnosis was very helpful for me, because you just get to see like, okay, I am not the problem. And I mean, we are, right? A little
I get
bit,
the distinction that you're saying, though. It's not like, what I'm hearing you say is not that you're excusing all behavior because, it's just not my fault. This isn't my fault, so it's not my responsibility. What I'm hearing you say is that having that power of knowing what that label is allows you to look at yourself and say, okay, this is not because I'm inherently flawed. This is not because I'm a bad person.
Right.
There's a reason for this, and there are external influences.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that I have no responsibility in this. I think recognizing that something's not your fault doesn't negate the responsibility that's there. It just empowers you to then have the tools to say, okay, this is what's going on. It's not my fault, but it is my responsibility to take care of myself, whatever that might mean for each individual person.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. Yes, 100%. And then to gap back what I was saying, the following months were hard was because I had to kind of reflect on my life and these moments that I felt like maybe I did bad things or maybe I hurt people, and ask myself, was this you, or can you attest this to some type of hypomanic or maybe depressive episode that was affecting your behavior? And so in those 3 months, I did kind of have to relive some of the darkest moments of my life and some of the most, hurtful times for myself and for others, and open those wounds back up, kind of get closure with my behavior, and then boom, how do I manage it moving forward?
Absolutely.
And so ever since then, it's really just been a managing game. There's no, you can't fix it, right? I always tell my therapist, like, I often say, like, I wish I was just or when I'm hypomanic, because I'm a Capricorn, so I like to get work done. That's just like something that fulfills me. So my hypomania really pairs well with my natural state.
With that extreme productivity.
Exactly.
Yes.
So when I'm in hypomania, a lot of the times I think like, man, I wish I could just be this way all the time. Like, I wish this is really who I was. And when I have those conversations with my therapist, she reminds me, no, Abby, this is who you really are. And your depressive episodes are who you are as well, just along with your, regular personality. Your job is just to manage it. And so
Definitely.
So that's helped a lot too. Like, this is me, and I know now that I work in waves. And I don't expect myself to be that productivity monster 365 days a year, and that kind of alleviates a little bit of self-pressure that I put on myself.
That's good. I think when we can get to a point where we can appreciate ourselves in every single space that we're in, and learn to work with ourselves in those spaces.
Yeah.
I can tell that you've done a lot of work on yourself, even
Thank
just since
you.
finding out what you know now about yourself.
Absolutely. And even depressive episodes, this is kind of like my next phase. I've learned to manage my hypomania pretty well, not drinking, eating well, sleeping well, things like that. But the depressive episodes is more so of a mental thing. I can tell I'm in a valley when my internal talk begins to get very cynical, very negative, because usually my internal talk is like, you're that bitch, or like, you got this today. So when it's a little different, I'm like, okay, maybe something else is tapping in here. But I think the best thing that's helped me in those valleys is to take an objective stance to my thoughts, and then also validate them as well. I think my lows have a really unique way of showing what I need to work on, showing what I'm insecure about. If I'm constantly talking to myself negatively about this one subject, then I know I need to dive deeper. And not that it's gonna fix anything, but it just allows me to understand myself even more, even better.
Which really, that's what we're all trying to do, is understand ourselves.
Yeah.
Well, I love that you're so willing to talk so openly about the part of your life that encompasses mental health.
Yeah.
Because it resonates with other people. I think the more that we talk about our stories, particularly that aspect of it, it adds more self-empowerment to it too.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's rewind back a little bit.
Okay.
And let's talk about basketball for a second.
Yes,
all right?
yeah.
So you said that after things started to fall into place with your family, you're kind of moving out of chaos a little bit.
Yeah, yep.
You became heavily involved with basketball and
Yes.
even ended up playing college ball.
Yes.
Why did you love the game so much, and then ultimately what took you out of it?
In full transparency, I think my love for the game began as a want from my parents. I think my dad so the reason that things got better is that my dad ended up getting sober, just falling in line and living that civil life. And so when he came back, something that was always instilled with him is sports. So he was a football player, he was a D1 collegiate athlete, and then somewhere along the way he got lost and ended up becoming what he became at that time. So I think he understood the importance of having something to focus on that's bigger than you. And at a young age, it's usually sports, right? Because we're in America. So,
Absolutely.
well, I guess that's anywhere. And so basketball to me though was a to-do up until the point of high school, where I really began to love my teams. I really began to love the people I was spending so much time with. And what was the second part of your question?
What ultimately took you out of basketball?
What ultimately took me out of basketball was freshman year of college. It was our first tournament game, and I dislocated my knee. And that was in February, and then that's like a 6-week to 2-month healing process. And then a month in, I contracted mono. So mono had me out for another 2 months. So I was I shouldn't say immobile, but I was definitely not functioning at a normal, at my normal rate for about 3 months. And then I think I just kind of lost passion for it. At that point, that was really when I was diving into recording music in my free time and falling in love with that. And then just conspiring on how I can come back to Toledo and pursue music. because at the end of the day, I was a Division III athlete, so I knew that in terms of longevity, it was either looking like I was going to be a coach or I wasn't going to necessarily probably go to the WNBA, right?
Okay.
So kind of cut ties with basketball. And then as soon as that happened, I finished out my semester at Defiance College and then came back to Toledo, started as a DJ, and worked my way up from there.
Why was it important to you to come back to Toledo?
I think at that time, I definitely did not have the vision that I have now for Toledo. I think it was important for me because I needed to be surrounded by my family. I needed to be surrounded by my support system. And quite frankly, the University of Toledo and their business program is amazing.
That's
so
awesome.
In terms of schooling, that worked out in addition to being a lot cheaper as well.
What do you see in our city now that you feel like you missed, that you were just kind of sleeping on prior to coming back?
Oh my God, so much. The culture here, the ambition here, the people. I really didn't know that the artsy, open-minded, visionary people were all around us. I had no idea.
Most definitely.
And I was 16. Yeah, I was 17, 18 years old in high school and the time that I spent in Toledo. So it makes sense. And of course, in the athletic realm. So always around people like that. So it would make sense that I never got to see that side. But when I started to dive into that side, I was like, holy shit, a lot of people actually have this same goal. And so that planted the seed to what I decided to do today.
Well, when you really get into the heart of art and music culture here, as I know you've seen, Toledo is filled with hustlers and hard workers who really do put everything they have into their craft. And so when you get a peek at that, especially if that lives within inside you, Toledo is a very inspirational city, especially when you take a look at the arts and the music scene.
100%. And I think the reason that it inspires me today is because I know what we come from. I know that we come from nothing, essentially, right? I know that anything that is created here is created from the concrete up. And to me, that is the most beautiful part about the city. Like, my favorite example of a Toledo creative is Nightheart. And I'm not sure if you heard of him, but he is a rapper and also the CEO of his brand. And, you know, all that great stuff that comes along with it. But when I met him, he was 16 years old and he was homeless.
Wow.
And he was still performing at Ottawa Tavern every weekend. He was still finding rides to any studio sessions that he possibly could. He was finding a way to make it happen. Fast forward years later, his Saturday album release party, he actually just held a fundraiser for the same shelter that housed him and his mom when he was homeless.
Awesome.
And so stuff like that, I'm just like, it's the grit, like you said, it's the hardworking people that, man, people just don't know about. And we break this ceiling open and we're gonna be a hard population to compete with.
It's true. You're not the first guest that's used the word grit to describe Toledo and the people that inhabit it. It's true. We have a tough population here.
100%.
That's willing to put in the work.
Yeah, I agree.
So let's talk about diving into your music career. So you waved goodbye to basketball.
Yes.
And you dove into music and did not look back. So DJing, as you said, became a huge part of your life, as well as writing and producing. And it sounds like you dove fully into the behind the scene aspects of it too, really soaking up everything and learning everything that you could. So can you share with me what launching your music career was like for you and what skills you gained from investing yourself completely in that process?
Oh yeah, absolutely. My career, I would say, I went in blind. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know much about anything, but I began as a DJ when I came home from college. And I literally started just messaging bars on Facebook that were local, seeing if they needed something. And honestly, for the first month, I was DJing for free. And then, gigs build up, and then I fell out of love with the club scene because I was in school. So it was a lot to DJ like from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m.
I
and
bet.
then wake up for class
I bet.
and try to be a functioning person. So once I saved up enough money to get a cheap little Focusrite, a cheap mic, and the software to record, I just went so hard for about a year doing that, learning the basics of engineering. But at that point, I was then recording in my mom's garage. So I was like, okay, I need a space. So then I got a space on Monroe Street, Toledo, and then kind of opened it up as a studio. And there I really fell in love with the behind the scenes action of networking, of like managing, of just more so of the business rather than the creative. I noticed when I had the studio, the creative, I was like, oh, can I bring somebody in to record? Because I would rather have the conversation and I don't know, just do kind of the operational stuff of it, right?
Sure.
Sorry.
Making everything run smoothly.
Yeah, exactly. But through that, I learned the basic skill sets that you need as a musician, which is engineering, which is recording, and which is networking, right? So then after the recording studio, really that allowed me to take my own personal music career very seriously, which was awesome, and released a few singles that got on the radio, won a few competitions, sold out a few shows.
Nice.
Broke a record or two, and then that brought me really into about 2019, 2020, and still in college. And then once 2020 hit, I knew there was going to be a major shift. I also knew at this point I had collected so much, data using myself as the object. I knew what I needed to succeed if I could have gone back 2 years.
Okay.
Right. So
Yeah.
I knew that, okay, maybe if I had this in 2018, maybe if I had access to this in 2018, it would have put me in a different level than where I'm at now. So just kind of thinking like that, and taking note of what I wish I could create for other people. My friend Baywood too was a huge influence, and he's also
Jordan.
from Do you know Jordan?
I do know Jordan.
Yeah, he is honestly, I would probably say the reason why I'm here today with Creators Club.
Yeah.
Because he was really the one who inspired me to think bigger.
Yeah.
Think bigger. Like him, he released, for those who don't know, Jordan Baywood, he started off as a producer and as an own music artist, and through his technical skill sets that he learned, he developed audio presets, which are doing extremely well.
They are.
And so how he framed it to me is think about what you do for artists in the day-to-day and learn how to make it digital. And I was like, okay, coaching, branding, artists are always asking me about marketing. How can I make this how can I just develop a resource that I can make once and artists can use a million times? All these things in motion, 2020 happens, I graduate college. I'm kind of phased out of the music, just because at that point it was really hard to keep up with.
It sounds like too, you grabbed on very quickly to enjoying the bird's eye view look of everything, the operations aspect of everything, where you know a lot about every single aspect of it. So it's not like you've chosen this one specific thing where you're the recording artist and that is strictly it. Mm-hmm. You've learned everything about how to make that vehicle move.
Yes.
Everything that encompasses that. And I actually noticed specifically when you said the word networking, your eyes lit up about it. So I can tell, I know because of the conversations that we've had, networking for you is a huge thing and something
100%.
that you really, really work with your artists to help them understand the importance of it.
Yes.
And that being someone who is a good networker is an invaluable skill to have.
Yes, 1,000%.
Yes.
Networking is another reason I am here today. To me, there is nothing more powerful than human connection. And honestly, I've learned that in marketing, I've learned that in branding, I've learned that in advertising. The number one way to make a human move is to connect with them. And so I think I've always had an approachable personality. I've always been somebody that I like making friends. I think it's easy for me, right? And I know it's not the case for some people. I know some people are really introverted and maybe need a little help with it. But networking, man, and building relationships is you want to move something forward, build a relationship with somebody who's already done that. And that's just so powerful. Connecting and networking, so powerful.
That is really powerful. I love that you said that. That makes so much sense to me. If you're wanting to accomplish something, if you're wanting to move a project forward, why would you not then look to the people that haven't just also done that, or who aren't actively doing it, but that have done it, and they've done it really, really well. Yeah. So that only makes sense to me, to constantly be seeking out almost mentors, basically. Yeah. Even if those people don't realize they're being mentors to you, but people to look to and say, okay, this is what I want. They've done this. They didn't just do it, but they were incredible at doing it and very successful. So what's your secret, kind of a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. And like a few things. One, I'm smirking because my dad, you know, him being previously an addict and having that recovery life, you know, recovery people just have the smartest shit to say about life because they know how to get through it. And he always tells me, like, shut the fuck up and listen to someone who's been there before you. And I swear to God, that is great advice, and that's what you have to do. You know, you have to just ask someone who has been there before you and listen to them. Secondly, here I go, losing my train of thought again.
It's all right. Together we will get it back on track. Yeah. So he shared that piece of advice with you to shut the fuck up and listen to other people.
Oh, okay. And here's my other point too, with connecting. I think sometimes when people hear the word networking, they often think it has like some kind of insidious intention behind it, right? And networking is really just seeing if seeing if the vibe is there naturally, and then adding the pieces to the puzzle later. Networking is just going in, being yourself, attracting like minds, and then figuring out how you guys can help each other in the long run. And even for, I think this is also a common mistake people make when networking. They always try to reach up. They always try to reach vertically. There's so much power in reaching laterally to people who maybe did not have a super successful time doing what you were trying to do, but they can still give you all of these tips and tricks on how to not fuck up the way that they did.
Absolutely.
Right? And save you some time on that end too. So there's so much power in relationship. And relationship, I think, comes way before networking. Networking is almost secondary. And you should just be making friends that like the same shit you do.
Most definitely. That's so true. I actually feel like you're giving really good advice for how to make friends as an adult. You know what I mean?
It's funny because I tell people all the time, music is the only way I know really how to start conversations with people. It's such a what's the word? A scapegoat. I want to talk to a pretty girl. If she likes music, guess what we got in common, right? If I want to go talk to a professional with a suit on, let's talk about music. It's something that's always, it's your scapegoat to start conversation.
That's so true. We could have a whole other really long conversation about that, because I am a firm believer that music, it literally is the bridge that kind of brings everybody together.
100%.
So I love that. That's actually a really good piece of advice about how to just begin building a relationship with someone. And that's so true, because I've spoken to very few people in my life that don't like music. You know, occasionally there's somebody out there that says, I don't really listen to music. Yeah. I don't really understand that, but I know they do exist. You know what I mean?
Yes,
but for most people, music is a thing that is a unifier.
Yeah, and that everybody has their own opinion on it.
Definitely.
Right. So yeah, 100%. And I think one valuable networking skill I've always learned is just ask people about themselves.
That's true.
In an initiating conversation, don't be the person doing the most of the conversation. Be the person asking the most questions. You get people to talk about themselves, and then you have a common topic that you both are passionate about. You will walk away with a relationship with that person.
That's great advice. That is great advice.
And following up too. Like, there's so much power in ending the conversation with, I'd love to connect with you. Do you have an email or social media I can follow you on? This is where people drop the ball. link back up, whether it's a DM or an email, or you're showing love by commenting, reposting, liking that person, and just saying, hey, it was great connecting with you. I love the conversation. Let me know how I could help if you ever need anything. And along with that, like backtracking a little bit ago about building up those technical skills, the power also in networking is leveraging your own talents. How can I help you? How can you help me? And sometimes a lot of artists go in blind, just reaching. And that's what people don't like. That's a big no-no. Don't have your hand out. Don't ask for something with no intention to provide something back. But when you have a technical skill set, like recording or mixing or video editing or content creation, it's almost a swap of services.
That's exactly what it was making me think of. It's kind of like you're bartering services.
Yeah, so even if you are now reaching for somebody who's a little bit ahead of you, now they look at you as somebody who they can swap services with, as opposed to somebody who's trying to ask them for something. And that in their mind has so much power in shifting, that relationship.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So all of this seems like a really good point to get in deep about Creators Club.
Yes.
Because all the advice that you're sharing, I know because I follow you and Creators Club very extensively on social media.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mainly because beyond the fact that we networked, we built that relationship, you know what you're talking about. And even in dealing with this, I know that this is not a musical endeavor, but especially in dealing with crafting content, figuring out how to effectively connect with your audience, you really know your stuff. So even beyond just the musicians and the musical realm in which you reside and you're helping people, what you have to say and what you have to offer really does resonate outside of strictly just the music community.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I've been getting that a lot too, and so I've been trying to think of ways, or like maybe I don't, but I've been trying to think of ways of making my content more universal, because people who do follow me are like, listen, I've never played an instrument a day in my life, but the things that you are saying resonates into my career field or anything like that. So
I think that's a brilliant idea. Maybe we just need to network more about it. We talk about it a little more, right?
For sure.
So talking about Creators Club specifically, so you recognized an extreme need in our area.
Yeah.
And you used your experience in public relations and all the confidence that you gained from doing that was instilled in you to start your own community to meet that need. You saw that need and you wanted to meet it. So tell me about Creators Club, how you came up with the awesome platform, and ultimately what your goal was and has been with Creators Club.
Yeah, absolutely. So starting backwards, my goal for Creators Club is to provide musicians with the same resources, same networking opportunities, and same ability to grow as any musician in the main core music hubs, whether that's Atlanta, New York, LA, whatever it is. I don't want musicians to feel like I have to move there to grow my career, because that is so false. And now with our landscape of digital platforms, of social media, all I had to figure out how to do was how to get the resources to them.
How to kind of package them all to where they're in one place.
Yep, to where anybody can access, because I was so inspired by Toledo and really just thinking like, okay, how can I get Toledo artists the same opportunities? And then, so this all really began in 2020, after I graduated college and after hearing those wise words from Baywood, okay, how do I make things digital? Creators Club began as a concept of, I just wanted to create a branding course, because at that time, that was like what I was an expert in, what most musicians were asking me about. And when I was doing market research, all branding courses were just some white guy like talking for 5 hours, and it was just not anything engaging, or I wouldn't be able to retain much.
Sure.
So I was like, how do I build something that's a lot more engaging and just like looks better and feels better and has more to offer than just an e-course? And along my discovery, I found Mighty Networks, which is the host network that Creators Club is derived off of. And Mighty Networks is incredible, and it can be incredible not only for musicians, but for whatever niches people have. Seriously, it's an awesome tool. And there, they really had everything set up. All I had to do was plug in the information and find the team that was equally as passionate about creating basically a library for musicians. and then worked my ass off to develop that basically in September of 2020. And then we launched, Creators Club officially launched in April 2021.
That's awesome.
And now, September 2022, we have about well over 1,100 musicians worldwide that we're providing access of resources, community, and knowledge to. We do live events where we connect our musicians with industry professionals so they get that same feeling of being in the room with the people that they need to be and want to be in the room with. And I mean, we just have a lot of cool stuff in motion. So yeah, really having Toledo in mind all the way through, because I want Creators Club to be the difference for an artist here.
Definitely. Well, and what a lot of people might know is beyond just having the marketing knowledge, having the networking knowledge, and the studio knowledge, what a lot of people might not realize is you really do have the experience to back it up. Considering who you've had the opportunity to work with, you've worked with some very impressive people. Can you talk a little bit about some of the major artists that you've gotten to work with and what you've learned from working with them?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is an important thing to note as well, because I think this really inspired me to believe in the vision of Creators Club. Is that in August of 2020, I networked with Olivia Shallow, who is the CEO and founder of Amethyst, which is a PR agency.
Nice.
And it was literally an Instagram DM. According to her, it was crafted well, and that's why she responded. But that gave me the opportunity to work with Trippie Redd, to work with Quavo of Migos, and work on their content and things like that. And when I remember, like, after I sent the work in for Quavo stuff, I was like, I didn't move. Like, I didn't move from my seat in Toledo, Ohio, in my apartment. And so I know if I can do this, any other kid in this city can do it as well. They just have to have that access, and they have to have that knowledge of knowing how to do things or how to reach out. But that was a really, really big moment where I was like, Creators Club absolutely has potential to make a difference in this community. So yeah, so got to work with Quavo and Trippie, and then Creators Club also caught the attention of Mark Urselli, who is a Grammy Award-winning audio engineer. He's worked with like Patti LaBelle, U2, Luther Vandross. I mean, that dude is nuts. And along the way, just really building relationships with people who are doing other amazing things in New York and LA and on bigger platforms. And we're all just trying to connect the pieces on how to make it equal.
Definitely.
You know?
So, if you were talking to an emerging musician that is not familiar with Creators Club at this point, what would you say to them is the reason that it is absolutely essential for them to take advantage of this resource?
It is truly just a tool that's going to help you develop your career. It is a place that you can find a community if you're looking for one, whether that's artists who are in the same genre as you, whether you're looking for a producer who can produce, your type of music. It will connect you with the industry professionals you are trying to grab the attention of at the end of the day. You have opportunities to do those things, but it is just a tool in the toolbox. And by no means is it the only tool, right? That I would never encourage musicians to be like, use Creators Club and Creators Club only, because at the end of the day, the more resources, the better.
Absolutely.
So it is just a powerful tool to have in your toolbox, and it's free.
That's the thing, is I think it's very rare to be able to find all the pieces of information and all of the connection opportunities that you're providing all in one place. And from my vantage point, that's the key that I see with this it's everything in one place. And then you mentioned that it's free. Why has it been important to you to keep it from being cost prohibitive for people?
100% because of accessibility. I know that that's important. I know being a Toledo artist, and it's not even a Toledo artist, being a young teenage artist, like $60 to spend on a cover art was like maybe a third of my paycheck.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, like, thinking about things like that. And one thing that I have not mentioned is that I am a director of marketing for Northwest Ohio's #1 school-based mental health agency.
Nice.
So I work really closely with kids and with mental health. And one of the huge things that kids don't access mental health is because they have barriers, right? Accessibility to appointments, accessibility to finances for funds to pay for the appointments. And so kind of taking what I learned there and also understanding it translates no matter what you're doing. You should always assume people have a hard time accessing things via money, via transportation, education, whatever it is, and try to make it as easy and as accessible as possible.
So you're working on breaking down those barriers then?
Yes.
That's
Yep.
awesome.
Yep. And community and education, I got to give Baywood credit for this. He taught me should always be free, no matter what. There's no reason why anybody should charge for a community or to improve, what you know about a topic.
That's a valuable piece of advice.
Yeah.
So I know you have a really big heart for youth in general.
Yes.
I know that's fueled based on your own experiences
Yeah.
and knowing what it's like having your own barriers. So I feel like this is a perfect time to talk about the Sarabia Family Foundation.
Yes.
So you are a co-founder
Yes.
of the foundation. Can you tell me about the great work that your foundation is doing?
Absolutely.
And how it's helping to positively impact the youth right in our community?
Yeah, 100%. So me and my father founded the Sarabia Family Foundation together in honor of our grandparents who have passed away. And essentially it's what we're doing. We definitely have long-term visions, but for right now, what we are doing is a scholarship reward for what we like to call adverse students, because we know the smart kids get the scholarships, right? We know the kids with perfect attendance get the scholarships, but what me and my father know is that those aren't the kids who are achieving greatness all the time. It's the kids who maybe have parents as drug addicts, but still find a way to get to school every day. Maybe they're not getting good grades, but maybe they don't have a bed to sleep on and they can't stay awake during school. You know what I mean? Like there's so many of these situations that our youth goes through that makes them so adverse. And these are the ones we don't want to miss. We want to make sure these are the ones that still have that opportunity to succeed, just like the A+ students, the perfect attendance students, things like that. So we were able to reward our first scholarship recipient of Woodward High School with $10,000.
Awesome.
Yeah. And
Wow.
for her college education. And she had a beautiful story. She lost her mother when she was young. She had a child at 16 years old, is an amazing mother, carries a 3.4 GPA. I mean, I don't even know how she does it. I would not be able to do that. So
Yeah.
looking for stories like that and wanting to give those kids the same opportunity.
That's incredible.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we're hoping to build it. We're hoping to just do more creative things with it. Like we're talking about maybe starting a coffee shop or maybe opening a restaurant, just something that continues to give back to our youth, that opens up more job opportunities for them, and that gives them an extra support so they can succeed as well.
That doesn't surprise me that you guys are looking for ways to make it even more effective, because from where I'm sitting, to me, that's very much who you are in general.
Yeah.
When you create something or come up with something and are putting something together, I can tell that you're a person that doesn't look at it as ever completed.
Yeah.
Not in a toxic way, but more of looking and saying, in general, everything can always be improved upon. So how do we take this thing that has this amazing basis? How do we continue to make it better and better?
Absolutely.
So if you were trying to convince someone who has never been to Toledo to move to Toledo, what would your pitch be to them?
My pitch would be that Toledo is probably the best place to bring your business to because cost of living is very cheap. And that there is a lot of space for you to be your own person here. Toledo by no means has a certain type of person that we favor.
That's true.
And so you can kind of find yourself here and not feel embarrassed about it, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
I feel when people, when they want to go to New York or LA, they want to bring this presence of themselves. If you don't know that, that's perfectly okay here, because we're all building it. Toledo is still building its own kind of presence and things like that. So
definitely, that's a really good way to sell it. Absolutely.
Thank you. And home slice pizza.
That's true.
Mashed
Home slice
potato
is
pizza.
excellent.
Yes, that is my number one thing. And Toledo Spirits.
Oh, Toledo Spirits, yes, absolutely. If for no other reason, come to Toledo for Toledo
for
Spirits,
real.
right?
Yes.
Well, Abby, you are awesome and inspirational and so creative.
Thank you.
And I'm so excited about your episode specifically because I know, like me, it took another person who knows you, another creative in town, to give name recognition to you for me and for me to build that relationship with you. I'm so excited for other creatives out there and other people in general, one, to know that you created this amazing resource, to know that you are a resource and that you are in general rooting for people to do well in our city.
Yes.
And also that you're an incredible philanthropist and you're just, you're helping. I mean, we are nothing without our youth and we're not going to be around forever. So it's important. I love that you get that it's so important to invest in our youth that are coming up in this town. So thank you, seriously, thank you for everything that you are adding to our town and the many ways in which I can tell that you want to see people succeed.
Yes, I appreciate that so much. Thank you for doing this because I think musicians sometimes pigeonhole themselves into a vision of success. And success looks like a lot of different things. You may not be making music every single day, but now you have built something so creative that other creatives can leverage for their platforms, and it's a gift that keeps on giving. And
thanks,
so
Abby.
Thank you for doing this because you are absolutely igniting inspiration and somebody else is going to have a trickle effect. It's just natural. And that's why execution on your dreams, no matter how big or how small, is so important because it has a trickle effect. And that trickle effect is what it's all about.
Thank you. I really do appreciate the very kind and encouraging words.
Of course.
If you would, the floor is yours. Please look right at this camera.
All right.
Tell people where they can find you and Creators Club and connect with you on social media.
Okay.
If you have anything specific that you would like to promote, the floor is yours.
Okay, awesome. Say my name?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
All right. Hey, everyone, this is Abby Sarabia. You can find me on linktree.com/Abby Sarabia. Again, that's linktree.com/Abby Sarabia. There you will find access to Creators Club, all my social media networks, all of my freebies for musicians, and just so much more. So thank you for having me. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this amazing opportunity to be on the Glass City podcast.
Well, to all of you who are watching and listening today, thank you once again for tuning in, for taking out the time to listen to us or watch us. If you are watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you're not already following us on social media, you can find us on both Facebook and Instagram at Heart of Glass the Pod. We also have a link tree. It's just linktree/Heart of Glass the Pod. There you can find every single resource that you could possibly need for the podcast. We just thank you so much for continuing to tune in with us and for taking the time to learn a little bit more about another awesome human who makes up the heartbeat of the Glass City. Thanks, and we'll see you again next time.